If you've ever watched a tennis match and thought to yourself, what's going on here? You're not alone. The numbers are weird. 15, 30, 40, why not just 1, 2, 3? And where else in life does love equal 0? Maybe don't answer that. Tennis scoring is confusing and it's ancient. Going back to a time even before tennis rackets. While tennis players have redefined what's possible on the court and equipment manufacturers have innovated the tools we use to play tennis, the scoring hasn't changed for centuries. But maybe it's too stuck in the past. The president of the Tennis Hall of Fame even blamed the score system for tennis's lack of popularity relative to other spectator sports. So that begs the question, why do we use it? And why does it exist in the first place? Here's the thing. No one really knows. Let me explain. Other racket sports, badminton, squash, even the sport named after tennis, table tennis, use a linear, conventional scoring system that we're comfortable with. Winning a point gets you 1 point. Your score goes up by 1. Most other ball sports don't often deviate from this either. Baseball, European football, hockey, handball, volleyball, the list goes on. Sure, there's some oddities. Basketball shots from the normal run of play are worth 2 or 3, with free throws being the way to advance your score by just 1 point. In golf, you technically want to be negative, not positive. And American football is where you really get into trouble, with a touchdown worth 6 and an extra point worth 1. Unless you feel dangerous, then it's 2. A field goal is 3, and you can score 2 on defense, or even 1, but only if the moon is full and the rules committee allows it. But I think none of these are as odd as tennis. You start off at love all, win a point, and you go to 15, then to 30. If you're like me as a kid, you might think that you're smart and try to pick up on the pattern here. Next is going to be 45. Nope, then we go to 40. Then if you win another point, the game is over. And what might be the most maddening, there's no specific mark or score that is reached after 40. It's not like you reach 60 or something in a pattern we might expect. The game is just over after 40. Unless your opponent is also at 40, and then you go to what's called deuce. At deuce, you need to win 2 points in a row. Win 1 point and you're at a score that's called advantage. Win another and you win the game. A game can be over in 4 quick points. 15 love, 30 love, 40 love, and then game. Or if you and your opponent can't break the deuce, the game can go on for 50 or infinite points. Win 6 games and you win the set. And the first to 2 or 3 sets, tournament depending, wins the match. The set and match structure really isn't that strange. Volleyball also employs sets for scoring, but because tennis goes even 1 layer deeper to the games, it introduces a unique dynamic where it's not just about winning the most points. You can very realistically win a minority of the points in a match and still win the match, as long as you win the right points to win the games. And because each game is compartmentalized from the other, you're always in it until the match actually ends. Even if you get smoked in the first set and put up a bagel, losing 6 games to nothing, when the second set starts, you're right back on even ground. It creates a dynamic where you're never fully out of it, the same way you would be if you're down 20 in American football with minutes to go. Every point in tennis matters. This does not, however, mean that every point is the same. Winning a point on your opponent's serve, a break point, is far more valuable than winning a point on your own serve, which is what you're kind of expected to do. Some points matter much more than others, but you cannot ever lose a tennis game with the clock running out. The game is not over until that final match point is scored. So you're always in it. Moreover, the win by 2 system, the deuce rule, introduces inherent drama. If you're at deuce, you have to actually win the next 2 points, or you don't win the game, and you just keep trading points, staying at deuce until someone breaks through. It's pure competition. Okay, so we like the game and set format, and we like deuce, but the question still remains. How did we get here in the first place? There's no clean or definitive answer for where tennis scoring came from. It's just a collection of theories and legends passed down like folklore. Historian Elizabeth Wilson believes that's partly what makes tennis into a kind of romantic game, because it has all this history that isn't really history. To source the earliest theory, we have to travel back to the Middle Ages in France. They played a game called jeu de paume that is the closest resemblance to modern tennis. It was played with the palm of the hand and had a very similar scoring system to what we use now. It then grew into an almost theatrical game tied closely to the French royal court. At its peak in the 14th century, Paris alone had over 1,000 courts. Henry VIII played it. Poets wrote ballads comparing life to a game of tennis. It was a sport of monarchs and monks, and even then, they knew that the scoring was strange. One popular theory says players used a clock face to keep score, moving the hand forward by quarters for each score: 15, 30, 45, and finally back to the top of the clock for the end of the game. And this feels really right. The 4 major stops on a clock face could easily correspond to the 4 point totals in tennis. But there's a problem. Clockmakers only started adding minute hands in the late 1500s, well after jeu de paume players were using the scoring that we know now. For instance, a poem written in the year 1415 counts the score in a tennis match that King Henry V was playing, and the score starts at 15, counts up to 30, and then 45. Charles d'Orleans, a French nobleman, wrote a ballad comparing life to a tennis match, using 45 as both his age and his score. Erasmus, writing in the 1520s, had characters in a dialogue say, "We've got 30, we've got 45. So the odd scoring was everywhere, and even then, no one knew exactly why. In the 1520s, one man asked, "Why do players get 15 points for a single shot? Why isn't 1 point just 1 point?" So the confusion over these 15-point segments is not new. It's baked into the sport of tennis. And even the origin of the word tennis is not entirely clear. The most common theory is that it derives from the French word tenir, meaning to take or to hold. Tennis is roughly the imperative form of tenir, with the idea being that the server would shout this at the receiver before serving. Tenez. Then that turns into tennis over time. But back to the scoring. Somewhere along the line, as tennis proliferated from the royal courts throughout the kingdoms, the 45 got shaved down to just 40, either for simplicity or speed, or because people just started saying it that way. One theory suggests that royalty wanted to further obfuscate the scoring system of their beloved sport to make it more confusing for the riff-raff to understand it, therefore making it 15, 30, 40, and not the more sensible 15, 30, 45. The theory goes that that would help preserve it as a sport for the elites, but I'm not sure how much I buy that one. Then there's the issue of love. What is love? In tennis, love refers to 0. Some say that it comes from a French word meaning egg that would have been used because of eggs' oval-like quality, and so similar to a 0-like shape. Others say that doesn't check out linguistically and propose the Dutch word of loof, meaning honor, as in playing for pride when you're down. And still others thinks it comes from English phrases like neither for love nor money, and maybe the person who had love had no money, or I guess no points. Whatever the case, it's likely the most recognizable part of an already unorthodox scoring system. It's worth mentioning that the modern game we recognize as tennis was not the original sport. The original version of tennis, played indoors, is now known as real tennis, to differentiate it from the tennis we are familiar with, lawn tennis. Real tennis is far more complex. The court is asymmetrical, balls can bounce off walls and slope surfaces, and there are lots of oddities around the court that remind me more of Calvin ball. Hit it into these specific roped areas and win the point. Aim to bounce the ball off elements like the penthouse and the timbre, and that's actually a better shot than just hitting it over the net. And amidst all of that chaos, the scoring system, 15, 30, 40, deuce, remains the same as lawn tennis, though it does feel more fitting in the more convoluted rule set of real tennis. When lawn tennis was developed as a simpler, outdoor version of the indoor game, they reinvented a lot of the rules, but as we know, they kept the scoring system. Perhaps as a kind of tribute to the sport's royal, storied past, perhaps they were just used to it, and it stuck. Whatever the reason, the scoring system remains one of the most recognizable aspects of tennis. When someone tells you a tennis score like 30 to love, it's hard to misread what sport they're talking about. It is a singular, individual part of tennis, and I think that's pretty cool. That, plus the compartmentalization of the game and set system that allows for highly competitive dynamics where you're never out of it until you lose match points. And so I think that despite its oddities, the tennis scoring system is a net positive. It's a kind of code that's still entirely functional and gives the game its pulse. As the players on court evolve and push the possibilities of the sport forward year by year, and the numbers we use to keep score are stuck in the past, it's a perfect representation of the history and the modernity that make tennis such a compelling sport. Yeah, tennis scoring makes no sense, but it's also what makes tennis feel like tennis. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, you should subscribe here on YouTube for more sports content coming soon like this one. I'll see you in the next one.